Quacketology rolls on as today we focus on the players the Eagles could sign on offense. Do they need a new right guard? And also the players they could trade for. That's Myles Garrett's music. Zack Berman's here. We're coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a beautiful, very windy Wednesday afternoon. Bo Wulf, Zack Berman here as Quacketology rolls on. And Zack, a good reminder today of how quickly things move this period of the NFL season. I feel like since we talked this morning, like 9 things have happened.
Exactly. It's as if, like, I know the tampering period begins on Monday, but they should just extend it from the day you get back from the combine to the day free agency opens. Because even if you're not talking to the other team's free agents, there's a lot of activity going on in the league today.
All right, I'm going to give you 5 things that have happened so far today. You give me the quick rundown. I'll go one by one. You tell me what's the Eagles spin
Eagles spin on it. Okay. Yeah, I like this game.
Let's start in Seattle. Eagles releasing Tyler Lockett, moving on from Tyler Lockett.
Don't think there's an Eagles spin on this, a longtime foe of the Eagles, but not something that has a material effect on the team.
Don't think the Eagles will be interested in him, even though he's been released and won't count against the comp pick formula.
Yeah, I don't see how that upgrades you from Jahan Dotson.
Okay. Same thing for Christian Kirk, who's getting released by the Jaguars.
Christian Kirk, someone they had interest in when he was a free agent 3 years ago. But again, I think there's more of a chance of Christian Kirk returning to Arizona than there is staying than there is coming to Philadelphia.
Okay, Joe Thuney, the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe Thuney, who got just steamrolled in the Super Bowl by that fierce Eagles pass rush. I believe somebody pointed out the only player who has lost twice to the Eagles.
Yeah, Sanchez, I think, said that.
Very nice. And he's getting traded to the Chicago Bears for a 2026 4th-round pick. First of all, what do you make of the move? But tell me first, I guess, second of all, what do you make of the move? First of all, any Eagles spin here? So
the Eagles spin I have for you is actually a callback to a famous Bo Wulf trade that really rankled your feathers, okay? So in the past 2 days, the Chicago Bears have really sought to upgrade their offensive line. They acquired Jonah Jackson in trade. They acquired Joe Thuney in trade. So you look at their roster and you say veteran Ryan Bates, someone who they traded for in the past or they gave money to, but is he going to be their backup swing guy now? Or is he someone that he had been rumored to potentially be a cap casualty?
Can we bring him home?
So Ryan Bates, a local guy who is that your least favorite trade the Eagles have ever made? Ryan Bates for Eli Harold.
I think it is the worst trade that that Howie Roseman has ever made. Yeah.
So he never had a chance to actually get a fair shot in Philly. They traded him early in training camp.
The reason it was such a bad trade is because he was a player who was projected coming out as probably an interior offensive lineman. They stuck him at right tackle, never moved him anywhere else. And they traded him for a guy who was here for a week.
Yeah. So you talk about someone who can play multiple positions. If he gets cut, he doesn't count against the comp pick formula. We talked about giving competition to Tyler Steen, but not like someone who would automatically slot in over Tyler Steen, and someone who, if he's the backup, can help you in multiple spots. And that might be Ryan Bates' music.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah, I don't think that he would even be of the level where. Like, I think if they signed him, it would be an indication that Tyler Steen is their starting right guard, and he's their swing backup.
But he's someone who's started before.
Yeah, sure. That's a good one.
Yeah, I just thought that.
I feel like there must be. I mean, listen, I could be making way too much of this. Lord knows I've thought a lot about the Ryan Bates trade over the years.
Yes.
But I feel like in order to get the sign off on that deal, there must have been something where like Stout didn't love him.
Well, it's certainly not the physical freak that some of the other, like your Lane. Obviously, no one's Lane Johnson, but Lane Johnson, Mekhi Becton, these guys are tall, long.
No,
athletic.
I think they might object to the characterization of calling them physical freaks, but
Oh, I just mean
I know what
in
you
terms of Ryan Bates coming out. He didn't have long arms.
Mackay Becton walks through the door. Everybody's pointing at him. Like,
Yeah. Physical marvel. Is that better?
that's good.
Physical
Yeah,
marvel.
yeah.
Physical marvel. So that, I would imagine Stoutland was okay moving on then, but he does have some decent film, and he's been this weird fascination of Ryan Poles, who tried twice
Yes.
tried once to acquire him
As a restricted free
as a
agent.
restricted free agent, got matched and traded for him thereafter. But the
Maybe
Bears,
they're both named Ryan and they have 5-letter last names that end in S.
I can't imagine that factored into the
Could have been.
evaluation.
I mean, it could be an implicit bias.
I'll defer to you on that one.
What do you make of these moves the Bears are making?
Well, they clearly didn't like this offensive line class, right? In free agency.
Yeah.
The fact that they're addressing it via trade. Look, you want to protect your second-year quarterback. Caleb Williams is their franchise guy. Got sacked a lot last year. It makes sense for them to do this. They clearly looked at the market and said the trade options were superior. Jonah Jackson has a history with Ben Johnson. Joe Thuney is a long-time established Pro Bowler in the league. So you get it from that perspective. But this is a team that always they're always searching, it seems like, for offensive linemen.
Yeah, it's almost. I would worry about it from the Bears' perspective. I feel like it might not age well, but they didn't give up much.
Yeah. But how
about the Chiefs?
The Chiefs are they're rebuilding that offense. Now, I shouldn't say rebuilding the offensive line. This isn't like when they lost to the Bucs. But they signed Creed Humphrey last year to a record-breaking deal. They franchise tagged Trey Smith.
Right.
But they're clearly going to look for 2 bookend tackles, I imagine. It sounds like Kingsley Sumatea is going to move inside to guard. That's the report today.
Yes.
They drafted him to play tackle. He's going to move the guard. So I think they're going to try to address offensive tackle this offseason.
DK Metcalf requesting a trade or demanding a trade from the Seattle Seahawks. What do you make of that one?
Was it a demand or a request?
You know what? I saw request, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, it depends how polite it is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Please trade me or I want to be traded.
A trade.
Yeah. I think
asks for a trade.
I say this lovingly. I think I'd be more of a request trade guy. You'd be more of a demand trade guy. I think
that's probably right.
I think I would walk into the office. It's like, could you please grant me a trade? And you'd say, trade me now.
I mean, only one of us is going to get you got to get results.
Man, this rain.
Yeah, it's aggressive.
Yes. So look, DK Metcalf. I've always been a big DK Metcalf guy, and I do like Jackson Smith-Jigba, but I don't quite understand what Mike McDonald's been doing there in Seattle. I didn't like them firing Ryan Grubb. It sounds like they want to be more of a run-oriented offense, which I thought when they moved on from Pete Carroll and they brought in McDonald, they brought in Grubb.
McDonald was a forward-thinking guy.
Exactly, and so you just look at the way they've kind of opted what they hired Kubiak. Is that right, to be the offensive coordinator? They have 2 good running backs that they invested high picks in Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where Metcalf goes. I think he is a difference maker when he's healthy. It would help the Eagles if he went out of the conference. If Green Bay went after him, then that would make Green Bay, I think, a legitimate or a more legitimate contender. I think what they lack is that true number 1 receiver, and he could be a true number 1 receiver in Green Bay.
I was going to say, is there a team in the NFC who you would be most upset as an Eagles fan to see him go to? Would it be Green Bay?
Yeah, Green Bay would really be the team that would jump out to me, because I think that's a roster. I know listeners thought I was pumping them up a little too much going into that game, but I think that's a roster that is pretty close. Dealt with injuries this year. I think wide receiver is the area where they can really upgrade. So in the NFC, I would say that he's not going to be traded in the division. There's no one in the South who I'm like, they're going to get him. You look at the North, the Lions aren't going to get him. The Vikings aren't. The Bears aren't. So
I think you got it.
Yeah, I think the Packers, unless it's before the Deebo Samuel trade, I would have said Washington.
Right.
But I don't think Washington's going to get Deebo and DK.
All right, the last piece of news that came in just before the show started that I think you could squint and say has the most impact on the Eagles, and that is the Max Crosby extension with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's getting He's setting the market for edge rushers over $95 million guaranteed. Essentially, he's going to be making over like $35 million a year. Why does that matter for the Eagles?
Well, Myles Garrett.
Oh.
If the Eagles acquire Myles Garrett, the steal will come in over Max Crosby. So Max Crosby is the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL right now, and he will be that until Myles Garrett signs his next deal. And that if you're hoping that the Eagles acquire Myles Garrett, you better hope that, or I guess bank on the Eagles figuring out how they can get some more bank here, because they can't sign everybody. They can be creative. There are things they can do structurally with contracts, but it is going to be a tall order to pay someone, $35 million a year when you already have a lot of.
This rain about this wild.
Rain? Yes, it's better to be inside right now, right?
I know that's right.
Yes.
Okay, you ready for Quacketology?
Yeah, I'm ready for Quacketology. How's my energy level today? I see in the chat they're talking about my level of tiredness. I think I'm okay today. Okay.
You seem within your normal range of outcomes. Yeah.
Sure. It's been a busy day, but I am.
We'll try to loosen you up as the show goes on.
I got some juice today. I'm good. I'm trying to be careful with my words.
Okay.
Yes.
How did your book event go last night?
Appreciate you asking. Went great. Awesome audience at the Ballkinwood Library.
I heard the biggest audience they've ever had for an event.
It was a nice audience. I appreciated all the questions. I made sure that I gave PHLY and Bo a lot of pop there. I should have mentioned Julia as well. I'm sorry.
Should have.
Yes, the outstanding production of our show. But no, it was an awesome event, and I love it. I love going to these events, getting a chance to meet readers, viewers, listeners, hearing their perspective on things. So it was awesome. I hope to have more.
I haven't asked you this before. Do you think you have groupies?
No, I don't have groupies.
No groupies?
Groupies, no. No, not groupies. No, it's anyone who takes a minute to read, to watch, to listen, I appreciate. But I used to joke when I was on NBC Sports Philly, Comcast Sportsnet, because then there were people who would, who would watch that was on in bars a lot. So and I used to say, and I say this respectfully, that the people who would come up to me were always middle-aged men. It was never like 25-year-old women. And when you are, at the time I was like 26, 27, I'm on, you're hoping that the target demo watching.
You thought that was going to make an impact.
It's not that I thought it was going to make an impact, but it was always the 50-year-old man who was watching as opposed to the 25-year-old woman.
Yeah, I think you have a type in terms of ZB hangers on.
Yeah, so I used to make that joke, like, how can we make inroads with the 25-year-old women? But not anymore. That's not my sentiment anymore.
I would hope not.
No. Although I'm okay with anyone watching the show. 25-year-old men, 25-year-old women.
Sure.
Yeah.
26-year-old women.
However old, young, old, watching the show, I appreciate. Yes.
All right. I think you handled that very deftly. Let's move on to Quacketology, Zach. We've got 2 regions to go through in the first round today, and then we will work our way through all of it on Thursday. We've got the free agent targets on offense, and then we've got the trade/cut guys. And we already have 2 people on here.
Yeah.
One of them who was signed today and one of them who retired today. So we'll throw in some replacements, which will be very fun. But let's start with
a quick message to all the writers out there, or all the media members out there. Not a good week to bank content, because if you're expecting to write that story for the weekend today, things are fast moving right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's start with the free agents on offense. And it begins with the player who I think most neatly follows the Mekhi Becton pathway. If the Eagles are going to let Mekhi Becton leave and try to replace him with an outside player this year in free agency, and that is Jedrick Wills.
Yes.
The Browns' former tackle, who was drafted 1 pick ahead of Mekhi Becton in that year's draft. and was benched this year. He sat out a game of his own volition because of an injury. The team didn't think that he needed to sit that game out, and so that led to him getting benched. He's going to be leaving. He is not quite as physically imposing as Mekhi Becton is, but you would imagine that if he moved from tackle to guard, there would be a lot of upside there. He's going up against someone who is the complete opposite kind of projection as a potential starting right guard for the Eagles, and that is Brandon Scherf, the 33-year-old former Commander, former Jaguar, who would be a plug-and-play answer there, but is probably going to command some money and is 33 years old.
Yeah, so with Jedrick Wills, a few things here that I would say. Number one, I remember doing a show with you back in 2020. Is that when he was drafted, 2020?
That's right.
Or 2021 draft? 2020 draft.
2020.
Right? And the NFL.com comp for him, do you recall who it was? And the fact that I'm asking you would mean this is relevant. Like in the NFL profile, the comp was, you want me to tell you?
Sure.
Jason Peters.
I was going to say Jason Peters. Yeah. And what was
Maybe
the conversation that I was making fun of that? Or?
No, I just remember saying like Jason Peters.
Yeah, that's
pretty ambitious.
Yeah, it's extremely ambitious.
Yes. But probably because he's not the tallest guy, but came in, high pick, was on the same offensive line as Landon Dickerson at Alabama, played with Devontae Smith at Alabama.
That's right.
So
and it is Jedrick Wills. It is not Will Jedricks.
No, but it's not Jedrick Willis. And I think one of the common misspellings is Willis. People write Jedrick Willis.
Do people write that?
Yes.
Who writes that?
If you Google Jedrick Willis in quotation marks, I imagine that comes up a lot because Willis is a more common last name than Wills.
What you talking about, Willis?
Jedrick Willis. I imagine there's stuff that comes up with Jedrick Willis here. In any event, Jedrick Wills. Yeah, this to me is the Mekhi Becton free agent. He is the player who has the draft pedigree, come to Jeff Stoutland University, rebuild your value. Now, maybe there are starting opportunities out there, but very similar kind of profile to what you saw with Becton. And not a he's not a guard, but I do remember he's someone who was discussed as maybe being able to play tackle guard, probably because of the height, right? He didn't come in as like a 6'7" guy.
Yeah.
And actually, he was listed at one point as like 6'4". I think he's 6'5", but
depends on the day.
Depends on the. I wish I had that problem.
You probably do.
6'4" and 6'5".
Well, I mean,
no,
but just generally speaking, you never know.
I know I'm not going to be 6'4" and 6'5", no matter the day.
Not with that attitude.
Definitely not. Look, there's things you have to accept in life, and I accept I will not be 6'4". Although, not to get us off topic here, the big, or I guess one of the big stories at the Combine last week was Jalen Milroe. The hand size growing like
there were like a bunch of measurements that like were way different than the All-Star games. Right?
Yeah, the Senior Bowl and the Combine they're all over the place. Unless I don't know what's going on.
Hard, right?
But I want to figure out how you can add this size. That's impressive.
Sure.
Yes.
When it
comes no-sell that was.
When it comes to Mekhi Becton.
Yes.
And the Eagles playing at right guard. You were at the Combine. You're having those early morning crowded bar conversations. You're trying to listen to the whispers, sneaking into people's hotel rooms just to find out what's on their phone. Do you feel any differently about this now than you did pre-Combine? How do you think the Eagles are going to approach things with Mekhi Becton and filling in right guard?
I'm going to answer that question, and then I'm going to add something. So how do I feel? I still feel that unless Mekhi Becton takes a team-friendly deal, the Eagles are going to turn this over to Tyler Steen with modest competition. Just because you're not going to be able to pay everyone, I expect them to pay Cam Jurgens. You're not going to have 5 starters making $10+ million. You're going to need to have one position on a rookie deal or a low deal, and I imagine right guard will be the spot that they'll do that. The thing I was going to add is you were onto something. You were ahead of your time. You read all these like Combine whispers things, and this is what people are saying late night at the bar. I would submit that the better stuff comes during the day at Starbucks or at the coffee shop.
Well, certainly if you're looking for fights.
At the coffee shop than late night at the bars. I think there's more substantive conversation to be had during the day. If you just sit there as you did for 8 hours at the coffee shop, you see so many people come rolling through. Whereas I think the bar scene has become such, I don't want to say it's jumped the shark, but
Yeah, it's a very much just be there to be seen.
That's my point. So I would submit that if you really want to know where business happens at the combine, I think actually, in terms of like not the actual business happening, but like the rumor dispensing or the that kind of thing, I would say the coffee shops or the hallways in the convention center more so than the bars late at night.
I don't really think either of those things leads to too much substantive conversations. This is the conversation I was having with Fran yesterday that
I haven't watched that. I'm sorry. I got to watch it.
I actually don't remember if it was on the show or not, but just in general, I would rather have a coffee for 20 minutes with someone who I have a good relationship with and do that 6 times over the course of the combine than, be at the bar every night. Like I just
100%. Yes.
Give me the quality of the conversation over the quantity and when it comes to that stuff.
100%. I do think there's the C and B scene element of the bar.
Sure.
Right. And there's a lot of playing defense too, which I admit I'm guilty of. It's like, well, if she or he is out, then, do I have to be out too?
Speaking of defense, how's basketball going?
Man, I really let my team down this week. I missed 2 months basically because of the Super Bowl, the combine, the playoffs, and was back this week. And I had more turnovers than a pancake shop, right? It was a bad situation for me. I did not play well at all. I let my team down. I was a liability on the court. So I was pretty frustrated about the way I played, and I apologize to my teammates if they're watching.
Did you use that same line the other day?
I did.
More turnovers than a pancake shop?
Yes.
How many pancake shops do you see?
You see many pancake shops. First off, IHOP is the International House of Pancakes. But
you could have just said more turnovers than an IHOP.
No, there's a lot of pancake shops. Seriously, there's a lot of breakfast restaurants that are pancake shops. Who in the audience is a Penn State fan? Who in the audience is a Penn State fan? I'm curious because at Penn State, the pancake shop is like a famous spot.
Oh, that's a real place? It's called the Pancake Shop?
I believe so. Or Pancake House.
Okay, well, that's much different.
Is it the shop, a house? It's the same concept.
What is this? 1950? Like
pancake restaurant? Is that more sufficient?
Come on, kids, let's hold on down to the pancake shop.
Is that more sufficient? Bottom line, I did not play well at all.
Take it to the pancake shop.
Next week is the playoffs. It begins the playoffs. We need.
And the season doesn't start till the playoffs.
Well, yeah, fortunately everyone makes it, but we have, because of the seeds, I just got the schedule. We're facing a tough team in the first round. But I'm excited to be back with the team. We have a good group of guys, and we'll see what happens on Monday night.
All right. Let's take a quick break. Give everybody a chance to flip those pancakes while we talk about our sponsors and come back with much more Quacketology. Can you name every single subscription that you have? Probably not. I know I can't name all of mine, and I'm not alone. I just learned that over 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. With Rocket Money, I don't have to remember every subscription or worry about forgetting any because I can see them all laid out right in front of me. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You can see all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For any you don't want to use anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with just a few taps. They will talk to customer service for you. You don't have to do it. And Rocket Money will also alert you if there have been any changes in your subscriptions. If Netflix is trying to sneak in a raise,
no.
I don't care. I'll name them. I'll shame them.
You're not supposed to mention. It says that in the.
Okay, let's say there's a streaming company called Not Flax, and they keep trying to raise your prices. Guess what? Rocket Money will let you know that they're trying to steal money out of your hard-earned pocket. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY.
It might be windy and dreary in Philly right now, but it's never too early to start thinking about the summer. Or even the spring, or even next week. I was looking at the schedule next week, or the weather next week. We're hitting the 60s 4 days in a row next week. And you know what that means? Sunglass season. Shady Rays. Our friends at Shady Rays are helping you get in the right frame of mind with their premium polarized shades that won't break the bank.
You're gonna drink that water?
What? Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company. Offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their sunglasses have durable frames, crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. With so many colors available, you'll find a pair that's perfect for you. If your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by their lost or broken replacement program. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. PHLY viewers and listeners, go to shadyrays.com and save 35% off polarized sunglasses with code PHLY. Over 300,000 people have rated Shady Rays 5 stars, so use code PHLY today at shadyrays.com.
All right, so we agree that Jedrick Wills
Yes.
is going to be more
We're
likely
only
than
one
Brandon
person
Scherf.
in here. We got to hurry up here. My bad. Yes.
Scherf, you don't think that's...
No.
okay.
I don't think they're going with an oldie.
All right. Next up, we have a matchup of the Moores. You ready?
Let's do it.
Dan Moore
Tell me
Jr.,
more.
very nice. I'll sell that. The Steelers left tackle who gave up the most sacks in the league last season and also gave up the most sacks in the league over the past 2 seasons combined.
Yep.
Big fella. Or Elijah Moore. Now, Elijah Moore is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think the Eagles are likely to sign a qualifying free agent at wide receiver. I think they're happy to move forward with Jahan Dotson as the number 3, knowing they have this very narrow target share. However, the interesting thing about Elijah Moore, you talk about those touch points.
Yeah.
A.J. Brown loves the guy. Elijah Moore moved in with him. He was there when Elijah Moore was drafted, and he's crying. There are videos of him, just talking about how much Elijah Moore means to him, helped him through when he had suicidal thoughts. Like one of his closest people in his life, you would imagine that he would go to bat for Elijah Moore to some degree. Now, Elijah Moore has had the misfortune of playing with some of the worst quarterbacks in football over the course of his 4 seasons. Yeah. But his numbers are a little dire. His rookie season was his best season. The last 3 seasons, this year, 31st of 33 receivers who ran at least 500 routes in yards per route run. The year before, 32nd of 36. The year before that, with the Jets, if the threshold is 300 routes run, he was 81st of 87. Unproductive. However, you could sell yourself on, like the Eagles have before, in this offense, maybe he could make a bit of a difference.
Yeah, and I'm going with Elijah Moore here.
Okay.
I don't think the Eagles are going to be players for wide receiver. I actually think Elijah Moore probably has more value than than kind of the first 4 years might suggest. Like I don't think he's going to be a bargain guy. He is a guy I like. He was traded for decent draft capital a few years ago. I look at this, if for some reason he's available with a Paris Campbell type contract, then I could see the Eagles going after him as a Paris Campbell upgrade. And I say that
I think
because
it'll cost more than that.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, but if for some reason he's lingering, then he's a player who you can use him in like a gadget role. He like you said has that background with A.J. Brown, but I believe he's someone that the Eagles liked coming out of Ole Miss as well, from what I understand. So if the price is right, I think Elijah Moore more so than Dan Moore. But I also don't think I think it wouldn't surprise me if they bring back the same receivers. They drafted those 2 guys last year, those 5.
I think I would be surprised if they don't come out of the draft with a wide receiver.
Interesting.
Another one.
Okay.
However, Yeah, I think it's unlikely that it's very unlikely that they sign a wide receiver, especially one who would qualify for the comp pick formula, as Elijah Moore presumably would. But in this matchup, there are so many tackle needy teams that as much as Dan Moore might profile as like a Mekhi Becton type guard convert for the Eagles, there will be teams out there who I think are willing to give him starting tackle money and expectations. And so I would go with Elijah in this matchup.
On quick topic of wide receivers, not to give oxygen to this, but the concept of our show is you hang out with us and we talk Eagles. And there's some whispers out of New England that the Patriots could, be trying to get A.J. Brown. Are you of the opinion there's no chance the Eagles are moving A.J. Brown?
Yeah, there's no chance the Eagles are moving A.J. Brown, right?
First off, even from
listen, everybody's got a price.
True, but even from like a business perspective, it doesn't make sense for the Eagles. The cap hit.
I don't even understand where this would come. Like what? Just because Mike Vrabel likes the guy?
And
you can ask.
And New England wants a wide receiver.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It befuddles me. I've always kind of looked at like the, there's trying to keep. I have a lot of friends in the New England media, like people who I like. And I don't say this in a bad way, but there was always there's like a 10-year period where like every player, the New York Knicks media was like, he's going to come to New York, and I think it's like in New England, this guy might come to New England. Now, the one thing with A.J. Brown, he did grow up a diehard Patriots fan,
right.
But the Eagles,
it's the Vrabel thing. That's
it's Vrabel,
a little bit of oxygen, right?
Yeah, and there's this thought that AJ's unhappy. I don't think AJ's unhappy. I know the Eagles love A.J. Brown, love him. A.J. Brown's not going anywhere, but I figure we should just bring it up on the show.
Yeah, I mean, if it happens, we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
how about that?
I mean,
it's not going to happen. Of course, it's not going to happen. What would it take
if people were talking about
even
on social media?
Aside from the, I don't even think they can trade him based on the way his contract is structured. Aside from that, what would it take for you return-wise to trade A.J. Brown?
Like 3 firsts. I don't know. I mean, 2 firsts.
Something like that, right?
Because you're not replacing A.J. Brown. That's the problem.
Right.
Like
What pick do the Patriots have? 4?
Yeah. I mean,
okay. Start there.
Plus, they're not trading A.J. Brown.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have a nice thematic matchup of potential returnees to the Eagles. Okay. Now, they're not going to sign an Elijah Moore type probably, but could they bring Nelson Agholor back as low-end, Paris Campbell level depth for the wide receiver room? Or is it more likely that they finally right the wrong of releasing Raheem Mostert all those years ago? Raheem Mostert, who was released by the
Miami
Dolphins and had his worst year in a while. Numbers really dropped off last year. He's in his 30s, but, that's okay.
I think Raheem Mostert's more likely here. He's someone who, if the Eagles move on from Gainwell, you can kind of put him in a backfield with Barkley and Shipley. One thing to note, Mostert,
go ahead.
A special teams player in San Francisco when Michael Clay was there.
That's true.
Michael Clay thinks very highly of Raheem Mostert, and he has a lot of special teams value.
That's true. I don't know that he still has special teams value, but
in theory.
I think he's actually kind of like the right level of guy who you might bring in, hoping that Will Shipley beats him out.
Sure.
So I'll go Mostert here as well.
Okay.
You like Mostert on your hot dog?
Do I like mustard on my hot dog? Yes, I like mustard on my hot dog.
You a big mustard guy?
How
would you peck this migrate like Dijon mustard, like straight yellow mustard and honey mustard?
Oh, I am nesting honey. I am pecking.
You're always a sweet tooth.
I am pecking.
We know that about you.
I am pecking Dijon. I'm a big Dijon mustard fan. I am definitely migrating yellow. Not a yellow mustard fan at all.
Okay.
I mean, if you're at a ball game, that's all there is.
I feel like that is the use case.
Yes.
Is a ball game hot dog. I'll take the yellow mustard. Aside from that, it's a little bit.
Yeah, give me
not my favorite.
I like a good grainy.
You like a grainy.
I like a grainy.
Like a Grey Poupon.
Sure. Yeah, I like a grainy Dijon mustard, more brown than a good brown grainy mustard.
Okay.
Because it's
but you've nested the honey. It's versatile. You're even bigger on the honey.
Yeah, because the honey you can use the honey with the chicken, right? And so that's the thing is that you're typically not using the Dijon with the chicken. Am I wrong there? So you have an entire group of food now. The honey mustard you can use.
Wow, Fran gives the same answer in the chat.
Yeah, you can. You can go, if I have salmon, honey mustard. If I have chicken,
you could go
honey mustard.
Dijon mustard for the
I
salmon
could,
as well.
but I'm saying, there's just more food groups that I feel like the honey applies to. Salad dressing, honey.
You go honey mustard on salad? I don't like that. Those are disparate tastes to me.
But you can, is my point.
You could do anything.
I mean, honey mustard is
on a salad.
Honey mustard is a salad dressing.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Okay, but I don't think that's a far-fetched opinion.
Mm-hmm. I'm anti honey mustard as a salad dressing.
Okay.
And if you know what, if that gets me canceled, so be it.
When I was living in Charlottesville, I used to do homemade honey mustard.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to have.
I mean, that's all the story.
Yeah, I used to. Yeah, I didn't have. I had Dijon mustard and I had honey, and so I would just make instead of going to the store and buying honey mustard, I would make the honey mustard myself.
Okay.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, it's really like you were churning butter back there. You were really working hard.
It was good. Look, it was you're making the most of what you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your hard Scrabble roots.
Last time I'm submitting personal information on this show.
I don't think that's true.
If I have anything to do with it.
You don't.
I know that. Here again. Someone said to me, someone said to me last week, they feel like every PHLY Eagles show is a hostage video. And they say, and the person said, are you familiar with Stockholm syndrome? And I said, yes. And they said, every time you compliment Bo, I feel like you are suffering from Stockholm syndrome.
Wow, this person really doesn't like me.
It's not they don't like you. It's just they feel like I'm held captive on this show. Yes.
All right. Next up, a matchup of tight ends. Now, two different types of tight ends here. Mike Gesicki.
Yep.
Who remains very productive as a receiver.
Jersey Shore guy.
Okay. And when I was looking at all the free agent tight ends, all the tight ends across the league, as you might expect, no tight end in the league over the past 2-3 seasons is asked to block less than Mike Gesicki.
He's a big slot.
He's a receiver. And probably for the Eagles, maybe duplicative with Grant Calcaterra, unless they're moving on from Dallas Goedert.
I don't think Grant Calcaterra gets in the way of your...
But I also don't think you're changing your plans to tight end in order to make room for Mike Gesicki.
Yep.
Or your boy from your Howie Roseman, if I'm Howie Roseman.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, why did I say by the way? By the way, I have been thinking about your headline on that story.
If I were versus if I was?
If I were, and then I cannot get out of my mind. If I were a Roseman. All day long, I'd trade. If I were
I had to be very.
Roseman.
Man, you enjoy your doing a little sing along here.
Yeah.
If
I were a Roseman.
I wanted to make sure. I know you are a grammar. I don't want to say grammar snob.
I think
grammar.
pedant is right.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think that snob is necessarily wrong.
Yeah. I did like 3 or 4 just double checks to make sure if I were Howie Roseman versus if I was.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, because so that I was going back and forth, and I'm like, I believe it's were. I'm going with were. And when you texted me on Monday morning, my fear was that I got the headline wrong. So when it was just about Azeez Ojulari sack rate, I was like, oh, thank God. Yes.
If I got to work on those lyrics, I guess.
I don't even know the song you were referring to.
You don't know that?
No. What's that from?
Oh, Fiddler on the Roof.
I do know Sunrise Sunset from Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay.
I in 4th grade, I had to sing that. Yeah.
That's a classic one where I only know it really basically because of The Simpsons.
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't think I ever saw Fiddler on the Roof. But I'm familiar with the concept of it. And I've seen The Simpsons.
Yeah, I mean, the guy fiddles and he's on the roof.
What
more do you need to know?
Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, and so in that piece, you wrote about Tommy Tremble as a potential
Tommy Tremble's a guy I really like. And I spoke to someone.
Well, how high was he drafted?
3rd round.
Yeah, okay.
Third round.
As long as he's on the first 2 rounds or first 2 days of the draft.
Yeah.
Oh, we have news!
We have news? What's the news?
Zach, this is it. Adam Schefter. The Eagles are re-signing All-Pro Zack Baun to a 3-year, $51 million deal, including $34 million guaranteed. So $351 is $17 per year. That's a lot of cheddar. But as we expected, their number one priority would be Zack Baun. He is back with the Eagles. Did Schefter break it or not? I think he did. We were joking about this because all day long today, it seemed like the NFL Network guys were just ahead of Schefter.
Wow.
And what must he have been working on? This is what he was working on.
Yeah.
Zack Baun is back.
Zack Baun is back. So what's the number?
351 with 34 million guaranteed. So that is structured. It sounds like basically a 2-year deal worth 17 million per year, which is a little bit above and certainly what they would have been comfortable with. But I think that's right around what we thought was a fair.
I'm looking at. I had 3 for 48 with 30 guaranteed. So, and then I'm looking here. Yeah. So, wow. Okay. Good move for the Eagles. This is the move that this was the priority. This we had been talking about. This was a priority. We said coming back from the combine, this was the week to do it, to try to do it before the tampering period, to find the number. Boom. Big move here.
Fran, I know you're watching. Feel free to zoom in if you want. Yes, I think obviously we have talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
This was the thing that they were going to prioritize for a lot of reasons, and I think it certainly makes sense. As much as we know that the Eagles have not traditionally paid for linebackers or prioritized them in the draft, as I have said, there is a what? You called this day? Okay,
no,
so
I think I
why
called.
don't you go ahead.
No, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I literally didn't say anything. Please,
you
please
pointed at the screen and smirked.
Sorry, Bo.
Go ahead.
Carry on.
No,
Carry on.
I don't want to.
Seriously, this is not the time.
Go ahead. Give yourself the flowers. You predicted the day.
That's all right.
In the story?
No. Please go on. Please.
I don't. Tell me. Go ahead.
I don't know. Okay. Zack Baun. So you're saying.
What is the thing?
Nothing. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Okay. Let's take a quick break, pay for our sponsors here, and then we'll regroup and talk about the Eagles making this big move on the other side. All right. Zack Baun is back, and you can be back too at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide, and they live stream over 780,000 events each year with early payout offers across the NBA and NFL. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, and today they offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get that $150 in bonus bets. Again, win or lose. New customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I want to tell you about TrueMark Financial Credit Union. It's almost spring, and that means it's time to spring into savings. If you have financial goals, whether it's buying a house, taking the dream vacation, or building your emergency fund, TrueMark Financial Credit Union has the perfect savings account for you. TrueMark Financial offers high rate certificates and money market accounts to help your money grow faster and work harder for you. Visit TrueMark.com for rates to learn more. Federally insured by the NCUA. Rates are subject to change.
Okay. This is the thing with the Eagles and Zack Baun. And there's a part of this that rolls in with Saquon Barkley. Hi, Fran. How are you? Nice to see you.
Hi, guys.
There's no guesswork here.
Yeah.
You know, part of the problem and part of the reason the Eagles have shied away from investing premium resources into linebacker in the past is that it's a difficult position to project, whether that is from team to team in the NFL or from a player coming out of college. And there's no projection here. He played in this defense for this coordinator as a defensive player of the year caliber player. There's a reason he's back, and there's a reason they extend him. I also think some of the like the Saquon stuff from yesterday, which we touched on, but maybe didn't get into a ton, just like, you know, all the stuff we saw on Mic'd Up about you're the reason we're here. Like, you are the one who deserves credit. Yeah, that guy deserves the money. Zack Baun comes here, is everything they could have possibly asked for and more. I think it's fair to prioritize bringing him back. Fran, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, this was something that we all expected, right? Of all of the big name players, he was the one that we felt he had the best chance of returning here to Philadelphia. I got to go back and I guess look at the Flu World Order rankings, but I feel like all of us felt pretty good that of Mekhi Becton and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat and that entire group that Baun was going to be the one to return, especially with the Nakobe Dean injury. I think bringing him back makes a lot of sense. He's underneath that tier, that top tier of Roquan Smith, Fred Warner, and Tremaine Edmonds from a money and APY standpoint, but above everybody else. He's right. I think he's right above where Matt Milano got a couple of years ago from the Buffalo Bills. So I think the money makes sense. You're able to keep a good player in the scheme that were clearly his best fit. It makes too much sense for the Eagles, and they get some business done.
Yeah, the big thing here, obviously, the player, the scheme fit, like you said. You're looking at a 2-year window here, which probably fits while Vic Fangio's here. You know that makes sense. Also, as we talked about, this is a spot that the Eagles don't have depth relative to other positions. Assuming Milton Williams leaves, the Eagles have D tackles. Assuming Josh Sweat leaves, the Eagles have edge rushers. The Eagles don't have linebackers. If Zack Baun were to leave, the Eagles would be absolutely crippled in the middle of their defense. And I also think the Eagles view him as a rare player, someone who has traits that are hard to find. And I think off the field too was a really strong fit behind the scenes. He wanted to be here. I know that there's, like Bo referenced, there's gonna be a lot made to the fact that the Eagles are signing a linebacker, and it is, I don't want to say ironic, but for all the conversations we've had over the years about running back and linebacker, 2 consecutive days here, the Eagles, they signed the highest paid running back in the league, and they signed a linebacker $17 million. And I think that shows you kind of the evolution of the organization's thinking in certain regards, but also how if you have a special player, you make a special exception. And I think Fran hit it on the head. I think the scheme part of this is really important. If Vic Fangio wasn't your D coordinator, I don't know if you're as aggressive making this move.
Now, Fran, to that point, just can you speak to what was so special about Zack Baun in the middle of this defense? And I think part of it is obviously his flexibility and the way that he allowed Fangio to change fronts. But I think sometimes that gets a little bit overstated and undersells just how good he was as a middle linebacker.
Yeah, there's a couple different layers there, right? So yeah, the flexibility is certainly big, but we're only talking about, 8 to 10 snaps a game where it's like, oh man, like look at the way that he stemmed down and played the line of scrimmage right before the snap, right? Like I agree with you that was probably a little bit oversold. It's important, but that's not the main reason. I think when you look at obviously the command that he showed of the defense, especially after Nakobe Dean went down, you kind of needed that solid force in the middle of the field there to be able to operate not just the run game, but also in the pass game. I mean, look, we all thought about what the value could be as a pass rusher. And, he had a handful of pressures. He had a couple sacks over the course of the season. I was more taken aback by what he did in coverage, with what he did in terms of just passing off routes and communicating and pattern matching. Just an outstanding job in the middle of the field. Think of it. I mean, it happened on the very first game going back to Brazil. When you look at Zack Baun, that diving interception in the middle of the field to Jordan Love, but it goes through all the way throughout the course of the season, the number of plays that he was able to make in coverage. And it wasn't always the huge diving interception. It might have just been, wow, it's 3rd and 5, and there's a shallow crossing route coming in front of him, but he passes that off to Nakobe and falls off on the dig route behind it, and he forces the quarterback to hold it and go elsewhere. It's those kind of plays that kind of get hidden with Zack Baun, but he was able to make those plays time and time and time again. I know Fred Warner, he did an interview. I'm trying to remember who it was with. It might have been with Ross Tucker during Super Bowl week, and Fred Warner, who's one of the best coverage linebacker in football. He was admiring Zack Baun's ability to play in reverse and said how impressive it was in his first year playing the position that he was able to pick routes up in space in that way. And then also just the growth that he made in the run game. Now, was he Fred Warner, in the box consistently week after week? No. But you go back to that Atlanta game early on in the season where he got cut to the ground, 5, 6, 7 times in that game. He got better. He got so much better at that, at being able to defeat blocks and play through traffic and finish as a tackler over the course of the season. And showed his value week after week in this scheme.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you mentioned Fred Warner. When I spoke to Zack Baun back, this was probably October, and I asked him how he prepared to play inside backer. and he said he watched a lot of Fred Warner and Roquan Smith. Those were the two guys he was watching over and over again. And he mentioned Roquan, especially because he had experience in Fangio's defense, and he mentioned Fred Warner because of the skill set. And he thought there was comparisons. I don't know if it was body type or the way they played, but those were the two guys that he mentioned. And now he joins them here as one of the top 4 highest paid linebackers in the league. I kept thinking there was no way he was going to come in under Matt Milano. So it was just whether it was going to be closer to Tremaine Edmonds or closer to Matt Milano, and he comes in closer to Tremaine Edmonds here.
And listen, $17 million a year is a lot of money, but I think this is good business for both of them. I think this is a fair deal for both sides. It's only 2 years of guaranteed money, presumably, right? And at a position where guys do fall off quickly. He's going to be 28 next season, turns 29 in December, I think. You get 2 years of expecting him to be in his relative prime. I think that's totally fine. From Zack Baun's perspective, he has been places where he wasn't used the right way. Yes, he's emerged as a star linebacker and probably would be willing to bet on himself somewhere else. But, I talked to him on locker room cleanout day, and he was very reflective on a couple things. One, just like the quality of this defense. And you could tell how much it meant to him. Yeah. And of course it did. It was a couple of days after they won the Super Bowl. But like he was really bullish on the idea of, I was great this year in my first year playing for Vic Fangio in this defense. Think of how much better I can be next year. And it was along the lines of asking him, like, do you allow yourself to kind of be like, man, what if I had been a linebacker earlier in my career? Like, wouldn't I have been somewhere else, less in the stratosphere of players? And he's like, no, because all of that stuff led me to be prepared as well as I am for this opportunity. And now I get to move forward as, okay, now I get this bank of reps. I think I can be even better moving forward. And so, I don't know that he could be better than Defensive Player of the Year caliber. There's probably some regression coming in terms of just the playmaking ability and that stuff. But I think it's very good for the Eagles, especially with Vic Fangio running the defense, knowing how much he cares about that position to have this settled.
And something that jumts out to me.
I don't know what.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Zach. I was going to say, I don't know what his other offers were, in free agency last year. Zach, you might be able to shed light on that. But, I got to think that he's also thinking it's almost like the Saquon Barkley deal of like, what if he had taken another offer to go somewhere else for, similar money or slightly more, maybe he thought he would have had a clear path to playing time as an edge rusher, this opportunity would have never happened. And now obviously life-changing a year later.
Yeah. And, in addition to that, something that really jumped out to me, and I think we talked about this, you and me, Bo, is when the team put out the behind the scenes footage talking on Super Bowl Eve, that Zack Baun was one of those guys. And I think that showed you the importance that Zack Baun had to this team. That he was a key locker room play. He was someone who was one of the guys on the team. And to Fran's point about last year, he was a player that the Eagles targeted day one of free agency. And Howie even said that I don't know if Howie said this or not, but something that I had heard was they kind of had to convince like the agent that, all right, we're gonna give him a chance to play edge rusher. But it was the type of thing that like we've talked about, and Vic Fangio said Vic Fangio viewed him all along as an inside backer, or from the time you saw the film, the Eagles thought he was kind of like the cheaper alternative to Van Ginkel, and that was the plan for how to use Baun initially until Fangio brought him in.
I mean, how about Howie Roseman continuing to get this stuff done during the show? Really impressed.
Is that good or bad?
Fan.
Is that good? Yeah, I see. I'm saying because if it's after the show, you do a separate thing. You have a head. Yeah. You have the emergency pod. You're kind of double dipping in terms of the views.
Sure.
Last year, I think our Devontae Parker show was like our highest rated show ever.
Because people wanted you because they had heard tell of the story of this man being so upset and angry that they needed to see you just burying the poor guy.
But no, I didn't mean to point to the screen earlier about.
No, but tell it now. I want to give you your flowers here. Tell me where did you predict this?
On the show.
Oh, you said it.
Yeah, I said March 5th. I'm calling it. They're going to sign him on March 5th.
Okay, I don't remember that, but good for you.
Yeah,
that's
and then
great.
I do know.
What's that?
Isn't it Zach Gelb's birthday today?
Matt Gelb's birthday.
Metcalf's birthday. Sorry, wrong Gelb.
Yeah, I think I said Metcalf's birthday.
That's
March
right.
5th, right?
Oh, that's right. It was the Gelb birthday thing.
Yeah, I think I said that, and then I think you said 53 on 3-5 or something like that.
I don't remember that, but
in any event,
you deserve credit.
The
That's a good
reason
call.
the reason I brought that up is the timeline that we had discussed, all of us had discussed, was the Eagles would go to the combine. They would find out the price of Zack Baun. Zack Baun, I said presumably his agents would get a sense of what the market is, and the Eagles would do everything they can to keep him off the market, because what happens is the first day of free agency, if a player signs somewhere else that another, let's say the Arizona, or let's say the New England Patriots or the Arizona Cardinals, I'm trying to think of teams flush with cash. Chicago, well, not the Bears, but pick your team.
Right.
And they miss out on a player. Their plan B, if say their plan B was Baun, then all of a sudden, then the contract becomes much higher and you're blown out of the water. What you want to do is you want to keep him off the market and find a number that works for both players. We spoke to Vinny about this. How do you know? And it has to come to the player saying, I'm willing to sign for this. And if the Eagles hit that number, you don't let them hit the market. And that's what they did.
And it makes sense for them to do that because, as we talked about, like Zack Baun was the domino for everything they were going to do over the next couple of weeks. Because if you don't sign Baun and you find out that he thinks he can get $20 million a year somewhere, then first of all he's going to be a potentially qualifying third round comp pick. So that allows you, if Milton Williams is going to do that, to maybe sign someone who you wouldn't have been willing to sign. Or maybe you then pivot to signing Milton Williams. I think this tells us, tell me if you disagree, and you as well, Fran, like I think now Milton Williams and Josh Sweat are basically gone.
Well, I do think they have room for one more notable contract, because my guess is the Baun contract will come in with it's a 3-year deal. I imagine there will be 3 void years on there.
Yeah.
So the year 1 cap number, my guess is going to be pretty low. But I don't think it's going to be. It's kind of the conceit of today's show. I still think Myles Garrett's a possibility.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to bring back Milton Williams. I don't think they're going to bring back Josh Sweat. And for how we started this conversation, I think that they're okay turning those spots over to young guys unless there's a blue chip that they have coming in. They simply don't have that young guy at linebacker.
We didn't.
Yeah, I think this is where the patience that Howie Roseman called for last week. I think that's where next week is when that patience comes to roost, right? Yeah. And he come in. He mentioned like unconventional. I mean, who would have thought a year and a half ago that Howie Roseman was going to break the bank, pay the highest paid running back contract in NFL history, and then a top 5 linebacker contract in the NFL. So now you do that. You go into free agency. It's probably more guys leaving than coming in terms of big names. And then we'll see how things play out in the draft.
And if I can just say one thing, I'm not going to name the name, but if there's a media member who's watching this show right now, you owe me an old fashioned at the owners meetings, because we had a little closest to the pin competition on the contract.
Oh,
and boom, I was surprised.
Done.
I was surprised by the sentiment that they were going to be able to get him for like 12, 13, 14
no
million.
way.
Yeah. And I don't say that against anyone. I just thought that I thought there was, and like there's smart people at different websites who were giving that projection. I think there was too much weight placed on the fact that he only had 1 year of production when the level of production was so high, and this is such a bad free agent class, relatively speaking, that I just thought, and the cap went up. I thought there was no way he was going to get below 14 million.
Yeah. I think history proved you right, and you nailed the date. Very very impressive. Fran, thank you so much for popping on. We appreciate it. We will see you down the line.
Back to the mock draft. I'll see you guys later.
All right, love you, and thank you for watching on Fast.
Love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
Okay.
I say it every day.
I didn't know you say it to someone specifically. I thought it was just generally to the audience.
Well, that's your problem. You got to internalize that. Okay. Thanks for watching on Fast. We will be continuing this show on allphly.com. I keep thinking back to the mic'd up. What was my favorite mic'd up clip? Yeah, was after the Cooper DeJean pick 6, where Zack Baun comes over, and just like dumbfounded. He's like, "Wait a second, you knew that I had the middle and that Slay had the outside, so you came off your guy and you did." And DeJean's like, he's like, "That's unbelievable." It was like, it's just his understanding of the defense, and this is to what he was talking about. Like, if it's already here, just think about how higher it can get with another year in the system, with the coach and with the players.
You're absolutely right. All your points are correct. The one comment I'll have about the past 2 days is because I agree that, just imagine what could come next. But the flip side to that is they paid 2 guys now based off of like the highest possible
There's no doubt about
in like
it.
the range of outcomes, like the best case scenario in both situations, which is, I don't want to say atypical of them, but like you're rewarding them as opposed to like paying. I don't want to say you're not paying for future value here, but you're paying for the player that they are right now.
It's true. And I think like they did just win the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
They're allowed to do that,
And like everyone on your team's gonna be like that.
Like
exactly.
everybody is in the chat is like so excited
Yeah.
that Zack Baun's coming back. He's such a fun player to watch. You could say the same thing about Saquon. Like from a fan enjoyment standpoint, like you gotta be happy that he came back, even if it is more likely than not that this contract will not look so good in 2 years.
Yeah, well, because I was talking to someone behind the scenes about the concept of like sentimental value, or like you have to be careful of being sentimental, and like the point was, a lot of these cases it's like good football decisions, because if you win the Super Bowl, almost by definition, you're not going to have a bunch of players who are underperforming and then you win the Super Bowl, right? So almost by definition, guys are all having these career years, and so it's not that you're paying them because you have this attachment to them. It's because like that's the player they are in that moment.
And also, that's the player they are in this infrastructure.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And I think that's to the Baun conversation, maybe even more than the Saquon conversation, is like the known quantity, the known commodity of this. We know how good he can be and is in this defense, in this organization with these players.
Is it fair to say, and again, there's a lot that could happen, but like if I told you last week that they're going to sign Zack Baun, right? Would you say, all right, that's a good, like that their big move is going to be signing Zack Baun and nothing else besides that? And then they'll draft and they'll fill in the blanks beyond the draft. Would you say
moving on from James Bradbury?
Yeah, but
in terms of additions,
but like, would you view that as like, yeah, that's okay? Like, they're going to lose guys. They have tough decisions. They're able to keep Baun. They have 7 draft picks, and then they can fill in the blanks around that. And I still think they can make moves. But if this was their big splash, is that acceptable for you for like a good offseason for the team?
I think you're right that patience is required. You would be expecting that there would be some other shoe to drop at some point, but I think you would. I think you're expecting one other thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Of like a mid-tier level, but if you just think about the roster and you go around it position by position, like they're good at quarterback. That's a position where they can maybe even subtract, right? They're all set at wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
They're all set at running back.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive line, you know what? They're probably fine right now. They need some depth, but like they could add. They should be adding a veteran who can play a couple positions. That could just be Fred Johnson, but it doesn't need to be a splash. They don't, it could just be Tyler Steen, and let's see what happens in the draft.
Eagles have made this official, by the way. Yep.
It could be on tight end. They got to make a Dallas Goedert decision. We'll see if that happens in the next couple days. Defensive tackle. It'd be nice for them to add somebody, even if they lose Milton Williams, but they don't have to. On the edge, they do need to add somebody at some point, even beyond the draft, but, be patient there. At linebacker, now you've got Zack Baun back. I think I'm curious to see if it's going to be like bring back Oren Burks or just let Trotter have it until Kobe Dean comes back, see what the draft happens there. But corner, they're fine. They need to add probably one more guy, and then at safety, they're fine. So, yeah, like there are no glaring holes. And it's to the point of Howie Roseman's emphasis on letting the young guys play. Like they have guys in the pipeline.
Exactly. Yeah. This is not a concept like this. To me, is not. They're just running it back. This to me is paying value for an outstanding, like a defensive player of the year candidate. One of the 5 players in the league who was a defensive player of the year candidate. You're getting him for his age 28 and 29 seasons. I know it's a 3-year deal. I'm assuming it's a 2-year structure. I'm on board with this signing. If we did a grading the move, I'm on board with this signing.
And so to close the parentheses on this entire conversation, how this started. Tommy Tremble or Mike Gesicki?
Tommy Tremble for sure.
Tommy Tremble moves on in
Yes.
Quacketology to the second round, defeating Mike Gesicki. Let's check out the super chats. Claude Debussy says, need to hear you guys roast those Patriots bozos and their idiotic A.J. Brown nonsense. I think Zach already did that. That did come in earlier than that. Polar Jam says it's called the Waffle Shop.
That's correct. Nonetheless, they good pancakes there.
With PE, so it's an old-fashioned
Yes.
type deal. Another super chat says, breaking Eagles are re-signing All-Pro Zack Baun to a 3-year, $51 million contract, including $34 million guaranteed at signing and an additional $1.5 million in incentives and escalators.
Is that from Schefter?
Oh, you think the super chat, you mean?
Yes.
It might be. Yeah.
He's letting us know because we're on the show.
I
We
appreciate
can't
that.
text people out. Yeah.
How much do you think an escalator costs?
All right. I see what you did there. I
Where is Zack Baun going to put that escalator in his house?
I have no idea how much an escalator costs.
Sean Wolford. Eagles re-signed, extended the two guys I anticipate to take over as captains with Slay and BG gone. That's an interesting framing.
So if it's Saquon, you have a lot of offensive captains, right?
Yeah, but Saquon's going to be a captain.
Saquon's going to be a captain. Yeah, I thought it was going to be Nakobe, but Nakobe's come back from the injury, so I can see it being Baun.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind, sort of.
Yeah.
When they're electing them.
Let's just give it back to Devontae.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Devontae
Yes.
about the whole captain thing.
Exactly.
Like, can't we just add one more?
Yeah.
It's a real tough draw for him. Okay. I imagine we should save
See the rest for
the rest of Quacketology for
Yes.
tomorrow. But, maybe we're going to get a Dallas Goedert trade during the show tomorrow.
We might. I mean, this is the nature of this week. This is why these are such great shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're worried. You wanted this to happen right after the show.
I kind of did. Yeah. I thought.
No, I think the live reaction is what it's all about.
It's uses the stats. You get a separate headline for it.
We can write another headline.
Okay. It's just my view on it. That's all.
We should actually, frankly, let's just talk it out. We should make a separate VOD of just the live reaction.
Yes.
Like, immediate reaction, Eagles sign Zack Baun.
How about post?
We can cut out
ad break.
Cut out the awkwardness. No, I would go. We get just the initial reaction, and then there's a break to when Fran comes on, and we'll sort of clip it all together.
How many times have I been in the middle of something and you've broken out in song, or you've made some crazy joke? And so all I did was point to the screen, and your response was to be silent and say, and just like halt the show.
Well, you halted the show.
I've been in the middle of a point, and you've broken out in song.
Yeah, but it was like you were specifically trying to get me.
What is more distracting? Breaking out in song while someone's speaking, or pointing at the screen?
I mean, definitely the latter. Because
no way.
Yes, because you can just talk through me singing. You are directly trying to get me to stop what I'm talking about and address something else.
No, I am acknowledging the person who's right. I'm not even pointing to you there. It's someone points at the screen. I'm saying I acknowledge you. It's like Dean Smith saying thank the pastor. I am thanking the pastor. Okay, you point that out. I see it because
This is a classic. Every time we have one of these arguments, you completely change exactly what happened.
Bo, I did not interrupt you. You're like, oh,
this was not a.
I don't know the difference between what you just did, but I can't tell you how many times I've been in the middle of trying to make a cogent point, and you have said, I just need to ask you, is it Fred Warner, Warner Fred, or like
it's Fred Warner.
Or something you brought up.
I mean, how many cogent points have you really ever made?
How many cogent points have I really ever made? Okay. So my point being, I didn't interrupt you. I just pointed to the screen, acknowledged what the person said on the screen, and I was going to bring it up after the break because this is the thing. We have so many people watching, thankfully, and there's so many comments that if I did not acknowledge that, it would have just gotten lost in the shuffle, and so I wanted to return back to it.
See, this is the classic thing where you always come back and ascribe some kind of intention which was not there in the first place.
Bo, once again, that is You are not the arbiter of my action here, right? I was so in any event.
Yeah, what an exciting show. Fantastic. Congratulations to the Eagles fans. Congratulations to Zack Baun. What a story.
What? Yeah.
Think about a year ago.
Yeah, good
what
for
a
him.
Story.
He had he had a newborn this year as well. So yeah, good for Zack Baun.
Got those bald eagle shirts.
Got those bald eagle shirts. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. What do you think is next here?
So I think a Dallas Goedert resolution is next.
Okay.
I think this is the week where.
Are you leaning one way or another?
So I think this is the week where they take care of team business, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the week where it's like every roster decision that they had, they're going to do it before free agency. And so in Dallas Goedert's case, if I had to lean one way, my guess, I haven't been able to get a read on it. What I kind of have the sense is, and this isn't like a stretch to say, he's not going to be back on the current contract. It's either a new deal or a trade. Okay, I don't think they cut him. I think they could trade him, or I think they give him a deal similar to like the Darius Slay deal a few years ago, where you guarantee 2 years, and the overall money comes down, but he gets 2 years guaranteed.
Do you think it could be you mentioned the Slay deal that came on the heels of letting him search for a new deal himself before coming back to the Eagles? Do you think it could be one of those situations?
Good question. My guess is that's probably been happening behind the scenes.
Okay.
That's
gauge your value elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, not publicly, but privately behind the scenes doing that.
Because then you can talk trade terms with those.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. That's
But you're right on the fence.
Yeah, I wish I had a strong view here. If I had to lean one way, I guess I'm leaning toward Goedert not being back.
Wow.
And the reason I'm saying that is because I think Goedert is a good player who would get paid on the open market. I was listening to our friend Sheil Kapadia, who I don't want to put words in Sheil's mouth, but he kind of disagreed on what a 30-year-old what they would be able to get for him, or I guess what Goedert could get. To me, Goedert would
as trade return.
No,
or as a contract?
I think contract. Like that he wouldn't get more than he's making now. Maybe I think he could. I think Goedert is.
Yeah, I just think that the cap spiked again, and the free agent class is so bad.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want a tight end, I know this is a good draft class, but I mean, tight ends are hard to kind of bank on in the draft. I think Goedert would have a market this offseason. There's probably a school of thought that, like, look what he did when AJ wasn't in there. Look what he did when when Devontae wasn't in there. The best game of his career came against the Saints, right? When they were down AJ and Devontae gets hurt. And he had that
most important play of his Eagles career,
play
of course.
Down the left sideline. But I don't want to predict that because I can definitely I know the Eagles are fond of Dallas Goedert. I can see a resolution. Like a 2-year deal, it's structured as a 3-year deal, but 2 years guaranteed, brings them for the next 2 years. So we'll see. But I do think this is the week where the Eagles take care of family business.
What a bummer. I mean, we get Zack Baun news, but that means we don't get to talk about Elijah Mitchell against Javonte Williams in the next round of Quacketology.
Can you imagine?
That's called a tease.
Yeah.
For tomorrow's episode.
That's going to get people to come back.
Elijah Mitchell and Javonte Williams. Plus more of this, baby. That's what it's all about. Zack Baun back with the Eagles. Howie Roseman bringing him back. I liked New Baun, which I saw in the chat. That was good. Was there another super chat that came in after we already did them? Oh no. Okay. Oh, bunch of pores.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Nobody's paying? Come on.
Oh.
How do you feel about the every time you tweet an article, Zach, you put out an article, there's like always one person who's like so angry that it's behind a paywall.
Look, I get it that there's a sentiment out there. I was part of newspapers when the content was being given away for free. There's places now that are more advertising driven.
I mean, the guy says shove it up your A.
But I would say that and this is like the analogy that a lot of people use with with paywalls is that you don't go into a coffee shop and say, just give me the coffee, right? Like the product.
No, you go into the coffee shop and say, oh, you're charging for this? And then you try to shove it up their A.
So we believe we have a premium product. We certainly, between, Bo Wulf and Kyle Neubeck and Derek Bodner and Charlie O'Connor, we have Les Bowen contributing for us, Jim Salisbury uncontributing for us. We believe we have premium writers. And so it's a product that I should mention Fran Duffy, who's like the biggest draw.
He must have been stewing over the last 8 seconds.
So yeah, it's a great product. And so that would be my argument is that we are advertising. We are driven by advertising on our show. That is why you don't have to pay to watch our show. But we are not driven by advertising on the website. That is subscription based.
Khalif says he's gonna reverse his mortgage so he can afford a super chat for tomorrow's show. We appreciate that.
I would not recommend reversing your mortgage right now, Khalif. I don't know when you got your rate, but I would not. I would just wait a bit before you reverse your mortgage. I don't want to get into that, but I don't think right now is a good time to reverse the mortgage.
And a good point from CDP. By the way, yes, become a diehard.
Yes.
Don't be a hanger-on. Support Zach. He needs it. Good point from CDP that it would be a little bit of an odd decision to pay all the money to extend Saquon Barkley and then take away the real reason for him being good in the running game and let Dallas Goedert go.
Yeah. Was that the Diz who was putting that out there?
Michael, finally, somebody flush. Thanks for all you guys do. Thank you, Michael. And then Claire as well says, I love Julia, Fran, Bo, and ZB. We love you too, Claire. All right. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Zack Baun is back. I'm trying to go Backstreet's back. Is there... Baun?
You're the one who breaks out in song.
Back. All right. Oh, Real Time with Prince Blue. I sold plasma for the super chat. My man. Now there's a real sicko. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Right there.
Khalif says PHLY is arguably the most loaded subscription that I have. I've never regretted becoming a diehard.
Thank you, Khalif. I appreciate that.
How about that? All right. For all of us here at PHLY, we thank you for watching and listening. We will talk to you tomorrow. Unless more news breaks, then we'll be here to talk about it. And we'll be here tomorrow o'clock at 2. Best host in the city. Tomorrow o'clock, Population U. As always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.